Hello, audience. Welcome to Beachside Tech Talks, where we talk about tech while Ian is by the beach. So we've got some exciting things to talk about. Ian has got the pulse of technological innovation. He's got his finger on the pulse, was just at an amazing event gathering faith leaders to talk about how to leverage tech to do good in the world. So thank you all for joining us. Ian, tell us more.
Hey, Teddy. Happy Monday.
Oh, deep voice. Okay.
Why not? It's a Monday.
Ian has a voice made for radio.
We had a great weekend.
Welcome back, everybody.
Yesterday was Nathan's 9th birthday, and Friday was Kenton's 13th birthday.
Double.
It was good. It was very, very good. All right. The party is
I also had an amazing weekend.
Happy Monday,
I was
Dan.
down.
Hi.
Welcome, Dan.
Hi, Teddy. Hi, brothers. Hi, Ian, my bro. Mally. Happy Monday.
It is a happy Monday.
Yeah, we're going to be getting some rain today.
Oh, that's good news.
Times are changing.
I didn't look at that.
Yeah,
I knew all
about this because I couldn't come to the fireworks last night because I was in Felton digging a giant ditch and covering it up with tarps.
Bummer.
It's okay.
I love digging giant ditches and covering them up with tarps.
You do? Well,
yeah.
There's still more to do there. I got Kimbra going over there tomorrow, actually.
So, Dad, can you tell us more about what happened at the event? Because
I'll wait till Nigel gets on.
Yeah, all right.
I'll tell you a couple of things that are on my mind right now, just because the news of the day. I'm thinking a lot about peace. Supposedly, a bunch of hostages were released, and maybe it looks like peace has been brokered in the Middle East. So, hope that's true. I would like the same for obviously Russia and Ukraine. And so, thinking about peace right now, and thinking about attention. I just saw that X.AI, which is Twitter's AI Grok, is going to get into video games. Video games is $200 billion a year in revenue. ChatGPT is doing $20 billion a year in revenue. So obviously it's a massive market, video games. So think about attention. How is attention going to be changing?
I mean, it's a crazy idea. Some of the things that they've said that I think we've actually talked about and theorized before. But one of the ideas that I hadn't seen before that I think Elon himself might have mentioned was having it so that while you're playing the game and while you're interacting with your environment, Grok is in real time making the next thing that's going to happen. Whether that means that everybody has a completely unique game, or if it means that the way that you see it is unique, I don't know what that means, but it's wild that we've gotten to the stage in technology as a whole that this is an actual reality that's possible now. Yeah. Like, I bet if they dedicated all the resources and everything, then they can make that happen in a few weeks. But it's like, it's wild that we have actually gotten to this point. And it just makes me think, like, where are we going in the future? And how fast is it actually going to happen? And attention really is so, so important because that's the thing that we have to give.
Our attention is definitely valuable.
That's why most people get paid money, because they're giving their attention and the skills that they as a human have learned to someone else. And usually it's in exchange for money. That's an easy way to kind of just summarize what a job is.
Yeah.
To get your attention.
Go ahead.
I relate everything more as to time.
Right.
So, because that is my most valuable resource is time. So how much time you're going to spend on something, how much time you want to devote to something, how much time you don't want to. So kind of keeping that, it's all about time. So yeah, pay for services and pay for whatever you do, but ultimately that's your time. I think that the world's moving more towards freelance too. Again, that seems to fit in that category of a time payment much better because someone may do a job in an hour and someone else takes them 3 hours.
Right.
So that person who can do that job in an hour is much more valuable for the time that they spend on that particular job. So, yeah. And it's probably the most limited money we can still go make or sell or do something else. But that time, we got to be doing it, using our time with intention. That's my point there.
Right.
Nailed it. Intentional time spending.
That's I've been thinking a lot about gamification. Like if we can gamify once you gamify something, basically Bitcoin, the whole innovation was gamifying the idea of value exchange, and making it easier to participate in the system than to hack the system, and then that's this huge innovation that creates all that wealth. If we could gamify human flourishing, we can gamify social impact.
I like that. Yeah.
Like that's almost like the golden goose. You nail that, and the potential is huge to help humanity. Which then I get back to, what was the purpose of games in the first place? You look at mammals, where we came from. Games are training for them to do what, very productive things. Like, you look at two tiger pups playing or lion pups playing, they're not playing. What they're doing is they're training to hunt. And, so if we can gamify the right things.
Yeah. I think looking at the actual core concept of what we've created games for is an interesting route to go down to come up with ideas and solutions for how do we turn something like fixing massive world problems into a game. I think it's a beautiful idea, and I think it's something we should talk about today.
Nigel's here. Welcome, Nigel.
I am. Sorry for being late. Had to do a little reboot, a little technology, glitch up there, but I'm here now. I'm listening.
How's the weather in Florida?
Perfect.
Yeah.
I got a nice, it waking up. It's around, it's hot, mid to high 60s.
Nice.
So you get a nice, little light jacket or sweater.
Yeah.
Long sleeve. You get out and get a good walk, and you're not cooking. So.
It's the summers that kill you, huh?
Well, I'm not complaining. I did, New York in
You're
real
the
winter.
Champion, bro. That's why
He's
you're not
attitude.
complaining.
That too. But like when you grew up, like it's different. Like, I mean, I don't know if it was just the clothes and what have you, but when I grew up, winters were winter. Like, you'd like, now we have snow days. It was like, wow, it looks like it's going to snow. Shut the whole city. Like for me, I remember going to school. You know what our snow days were like? You can't leave your house. When you physically can't exit the building because there's snow, I guess we got snow day now.
Call it a snow day.
That's how it now.
Yeah, we were stuck in Buenos Aires, and they had this snowstorm. And, Buenos Aires never, ever has storm. I think it was like 100-year storm. Like they had never had snow. And it was just a trinkle, like in Minnesota, it's like no big deal. But they didn't have any of the equipment. So it shut the whole airport down for, I think it was over 24 hours. And they had to bring in the de-icing machines. They had to fly them over I think they flew them over from Chile or something. And anyways, eventually they got it worked out. But it was a mild storm relative to other places in the world. But for Buenos Aires, it's a 100-year storm. So, shut the whole place down.
It's interesting how the world has changed. I mean, you think about even like coats, like back in the days, I remember buying a winter coat was an event because, you would take the, train to school and you'd walk to the subway. So you get a proper winter coat, you don't want to freeze. I remember they had coat drives and stuff like that. But I think about how heavy the coats were, got this heavy, and now they have all this tech, you get a little light thing and you're like, man, this is super warm. I'm good. I got a fleece with a particular lining and you're good to go. Yeah. So Thank God for technology. We've come a long way.
We've
Yeah.
come.
But your question about gaming, I think, at least partially, the answer is in badging. To me, as far as gaming to solve problems, I think that when, similar to like credentials or a Nobel Peace Prize or stuff like that, I think that good works being credentialed and accepted, supported, encouraged, that badging, I think that could be that certainly can be a way to incentivize doing things when you get
I
those
saw
awards type things.
that reminds me of something. In fact, I was talking with Malachi about this on our podcast, which is going to be released very soon. I saw this
Stop
thing
holding
about
Release.
We want
Wait,
it.
how does Nacho say it?
Release. Go ahead.
okay, we were talking about testosterone, and we always think of testosterone like, if you take TRT, you're going to get violent, and that it's a magnification of violence. And that's not really the case. It's actually a magnification of what's already there. And it's not necessarily only what's already there inside of that person. But if the person is a violent person, they're going to become more violent with more testosterone. But it's more of a amplification of that society or that culture values for prestige for males. So like, if you look at, like, imagine a fundraiser and they're having a bid, and you have, young executives and they're half drunk and they're outbidding on an item. That's testosterone fueling that. So in that case, it's testosterone that's fueling a very pro-social activity where they're competing with each other to be more generous. So, that just reminds me of what you said. If we can esteem the right things, if we can, we see this in prison to a certain extent. We've gamified social impact because we go in there and we play a game and we play basketball, and it's so healthy because it's a pro-social way to for testosterone to flow, which is the way males bond. So rather than fighting each other and forming gangs and doing things that are antisocial, we play basketball, fight each other, and that competition, builds bonds, and we build relationships. We break down walls and see lives transformed. It's beautiful.
Yeah. I've been thinking a lot today about leadership and what we can actually do to solve the weirdness that happens by having someone tell someone else to do something that they aren't going to do. Like, it's pretty frequent now, whenever you have someone who is a world leader, they tell an army to go do something and they aren't doing it. They aren't getting the repercussions for whatever the amount of death that happened. Maybe people don't have the same sentiment on them as they do before. But besides that, that leader isn't really being affected by that. And I get that that's a part of just the way that our society works. But I want to find what are the actual ways that we can not just incentivize, but show and reveal to these world leaders and leaders in general what the actual impact of what they're doing is, and in a way that affects them. I think transparency is obviously something to talk about, something you've talked about plenty, Nigel, in making things like showing their net good or showing what they actually do or giving a dollar amount next to it. But that's more of a reputation-based thing. That's not actually affecting them in a way that's outside of their ego in a sense. But I'm wondering, are there actually ways that we can motivate, incentivize, reveal to leaders the actual results of their actions in a way that shows what is actually happening, and in a way that can make it so that the choices that they make are more revolving around the actual people it's affecting, the citizens and the people in the world.
I think
Well, that's
VR
the
is the
theory
way.
of
I think
that's
VR is
the
the way for that because if you can see it in a more palpable way, um, I think you get a better sense if you haven't experienced it yourself. I, for one, having managed teams, in the past, I just find that things go a lot smoother when people see you engaging in the work that you're asking other people to do. It's kind of like, this is going to sound however, like to me, it's always easier to, someone who served, to me feels more appropriate to be someone who sends people out into battle. You know what it's like. You did your part. Like I don't think, there are, if you're a draft dodger, I don't think you should be, out there, really sending people out. Or I mean, I think it's a lot more difficult. It's a higher hurdle. I don't know that you have the same appreciation. Like when someone says, do you have experience with a particular thing, you tend to take them more seriously if they do it. If, like when you hear, stories of Elon working on the floor of his, Tesla plant or, whatever that, those type things were. Like if you're there with the troops doing the work, there's a respect that comes with that. There's a leadership by example that comes with that. It's not like, oh, easy for you to say you're in your cushy bed or your yacht or whatever the case may be. And those things also may be true. But if you out in the trenches, and I'm not talking about holding the little golden shovel for the picture. I'm talking about you out there really digging. You really, getting your hands dirty, if you would, putting in some, reps and sets. I think that goes a long way. The proverbial player coach is I think just more effective in terms of demonstrating. And think about it. I mean, certainly, as men of faith, you see that we have the greatest example. We have examples. We have that paradigm, to see, to look towards and say, okay, well, here's an example of what to do. You don't have to guess. It's been done. We're not even pioneering any new territory. So that's where I see the opportunity lies for those who don't have the, haven't had the occasion to actually do it. VR. Ted, you were about to say, sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to. You mentioned that, like deploying people to battle is better if you've been in battle yourself. I guess America's decided that's not so important anymore. I just Googled it. Who was the last president to serve in the armed forces? George W. Bush was in the National Guard. George H.W. Bush was the last one to serve in combat. And every president, starting with Truman to the elder Bush, was in the military, though not all in harm's way. So Reagan was not in combat. But then in Wikipedia, this is a very interesting quote. Did Donald Trump serve in the military? And this is from the Wikipedia article on the list of presidents in the United States by military services. Presidents Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Donald Trump all received criticism for deploying the armed services in combat while having not served in that capacity themselves. It's funny how we only criticize those guys. What about Obama and Biden? Did they get a free pass for that? We didn't criticize them because neither of them were in the military and both of them deployed troops.
How have we gotten to this transition? Why did it go from all the leaders were essentially people who were just these like hyper aggressive, hyper masculine people who would just destroy and dominate? Like Dad had said earlier, how like King David, the guy was out there on the battlefield. George Washington, the dude literally had these like miraculous stories apparently of things that would happen while he was there on the battlefield. Like there's so many of these leaders, Napoleon as well, you had mentioned. These guys who were there themselves. And that was just the way that it was. To be a leader, yeah, you're someone who served in the military and you won battles or you did this, you did that. But now it's completely transitioned almost to this world where I think like almost no of our world leaders were previously in the military or something like that. And how do you guys think that that transition has happened? And
That's
that we should go back to? I mean, what does that imply?
That's interesting. So you're saying that currently it's not just America. So since Clinton, we have a president has not served in the military. Since before Clinton, since George H.W. Bush. You're saying that it's the trend is globally as well, that leaders don't serve in the military? That's an interesting.
As far as I know, I could be wrong about that.
He made it up, but he feels really good about it.
Okay.
The general idea.
I mean, to me in the U.S., I don't know. I mean, I just look at what is, and I think what we're starting to learn, and I think this trend was, I mean, it started with, I mean, it goes back to JFK, or no, Franklin Roosevelt. I mean, what we've learned is that the qualifications to be a president in the U.S., this is by definition, this is not me speculating, it's just by pure definition, the qualification to be a president, you have to be natural born and you have to be over a certain age. And other than that, the only qualification is you have to be able to win an election. And so, like, that's the game they're playing. And it's really, in that sense, it's really at the core just a popularity contest. So if you're able to win an election, those are the only qualifications you need. So it's your ability to spin that story and tell that story and get people behind you. Yep. And that's who gets elected. And the more and more we've discovered that, we've pushed into that and realized that other qualifications aren't necessary. Like Obama pushed the envelope by realizing I don't have to wait and get this resume of time in office. I mean, I suppose JFK did that too. He got elected very early. But Obama's like, I can win this election. I don't have to wait my turn. And boom, he won. Reagan also realized, I can communicate really well. And this is now the TV age, is the media age, is pre-social media. But, he was a dark horse outside. It's like, I'm a great communicator. I can win an election. And then Trump, it's like, I don't have to have any experience in office. I can win an election, and his path there, now that we look back, we go, okay, that's pretty smart, becoming a celebrity through a reality show and building this, persona. The people perceive you as this great, effective executive, and learning to communicate in this today's media, whether you like his communication or not, he is a master at it, and he's the one who wins. And I can win an election. I don't need any other qualifications than that. That's by definition. So that's my response with just kind of sharing my thoughts, like no conclusion to that, just a thought out there waiting for someone else to reply after.
Oh, okay. Well, I think I'll chant in on that one. If those are the qualifications, then low bar. Hey,
well, is it though? I mean, is it? I mean, you have to. I mean, it's not an easy popularity contest.
How about this? I hope that we, as humans, have been able to be fortunate enough to have health of mind, to be able to judge those who are more than fortunate enough to be in echelon of elite public service like that. So what I'm trying to say is I hope that we as humanity, as humans, can see patterns in people, can have the fortitude in ourselves and the discernment to put the right people in the right positions. If we're not going to be in the position ourselves, then we need to be educated enough as to who needs to go in those places. So yeah, anybody can win a popularity contest, but I'm hoping that we stand on on our morals, on our spirituality, on our ethics, and on our principles. And the fact that public office is to me is the highest office of benevolence. Your job is to help your constituents, is to help the people you're representing, nothing else. We talk about it a lot on these conversations now. So moving forward, yeah, we're going to be going into this Web3. We're going to be, everyone out there politically is going to be having their face put to their service. Whatever they do, it's either going to be face to dollar or face to value or job or whatever they did. It's not just the picture of their identity anymore. So yeah, and I thank you, Ted, because I'm thinking, maybe it's time to start running for office, huh? If it's, I mean, it seems that easy, but no, again, I'm hoping that those people who vote are intelligent enough and are savvy enough and are have the moral and spiritual and ethical fortitude that put the right people into place. And if they're not, we'll make mistakes putting people in, but no more. Yeah, you're going to sit there for the next 3.5 years and 4. Real quick extradition. We ought to have something in our system to where every position has a secondary. In other words, it's a contingency. This guy doesn't do good. You got the lieutenant senator. You got the lieutenant assemblyman. You got the second guy right underneath him.
We kind of do. I mean, we have recalls. You can recall people, but that's a lot of time and effort, So basically, when someone gets in, they serve their term.
Recalls on our cell phone, and then all of a sudden, the effort and cost goes way down, and it becomes accessible. And if recalls were required in the middle of every single 4-year run, governor or president, senator, that'd be pretty interesting. I think
super interesting.
We're going to get places,
but
and not only that,
maybe.
How about the fact that right now in elections, it's like 60% at best of a show up. People, right. As far as voting attendance, that is a sorry situation. You got to remember, if that's the case, you're talking about 40 right. out of 100 people not voting. Hey, if I could touch those 40 people, I got a good chance of winning.
Yep.
Seriously, because
if turnout, mobilizing people.
I got 3 people running, and then I take the 40%. Only 60%.
Yeah, the
thumbs up, baby.
They're splitting 30% each, basically, or 40-20.
Exactly.
I did
so to your point, Ian, and we spoke about it, I think, on a different episode. I saw a TED Talk guy. They had implemented that in 2016 and 17. And the pushback was from government specifically. The adoption isn't ready, and such and so can't put it enough. It's going to be people need to push it. If you had a 500,000 page signature of do phone electronic voting, blockchain vote. They have to. They got to look into it.
On the world leaders and who served in the military, I did want to fact check myself to see how right I was.
We were definitely going to do it. We couldn't wait. We were ready to fact check you for sure. We knew you just threw that out there. Glad you took care of it.
You're fact checking on a thing that says I may not be right, though.
So what's the deal?
60 to 20-ish years ago, it was about 32% of world leaders had some sort of military service. And then coming back to now, looking on a really broad spectrum, it's about 23%. So I was not that accurate. But looking at a more rigorous
That's 50%
idea,
more.
It's only 6%.
Generation ago.
It's just
a big deal.
Looking at the trend go down on how many world leaders actually serve in the military, it just further strengthens this idea of how can we better incentivize these guys, because leaders usually just aren't doing the things that they're telling people to do. They don't specialize in how to hold a rifle or whatever the new technology is to be able to wage war the best, but they do specialize in how to communicate. I mean, it is definitely a weird situation that the only way that these guys get into office is based off reputation. How many people voted for them? And then where do you live? It's like that as a concept feels like there's something off about it. But I don't know. Do you guys think that there's a better way to go about that, or?
Well, I like the way Lord Nat Way framed it, and we have to see it. You know, I mean, we have to. I was just sharing that, like my contribution, that it's it's whoever gets the most votes and who can win a campaign. That was more from system analysis. This is how the system works, And he reframed it and said, we need better tools so that policymakers can make better policies, so that are more predictive, more accurate, process the data more. So there's greater transparency, and we're able to see and predict how these policies will perform better. And then we also need faster, more corrective measures, because we do correct. Okay. Like, I mean, that's, you can look at most of our nation is in an uproar. Well, half of them love Trump. Well, I don't know, whatever. You have at every election, half are ecstatic and the other half are as down in the dumps as possible. And it keeps flipping back and forth, But if you zoom out, you realize, okay, that's a corrective measure. We go one way and then we don't like that direction, so we change it. The issue is we need to correct faster, based upon more data and more granular in the sense of policy as opposed to just personality. So like that was Lord Nat Way's point, is that Web3 and AI provide the opportunity, but now let's shift the perspective of just, of blaming the politicians or looking to the professional class, and rather look at the story of how can we create tools to to give policymakers better tools to make good policies. And then he envisioned something like a leaderboard of policies, so that anyone could suggest policies, and then we can see how those policies play out. And then you could raise in your leaderboard of, wow, this person is great at making policies and he has a reputation that he's very good at making policies. Now that can factor into our decision making as we choose who our leaders are. So maybe it turns out there's some school teacher and he's got a knack for making policies, and we can see that he has predicted the right policies, suggested the right policies for decades. And so now we want to elect him to the next the next level of leadership. Like, it's shifting that perspective. Okay, a living example of this is what we're doing with what we've helped our friends Vanessa Russell. Their issue is human trafficking. And then they saw the laws that we were passing were being, in California specifically, were passed under this guise of, the sentiment that was sold to the voters was women's empowerment, that we should, it was moving towards the legalizing prostitution under the guise that we should not hold back from women this potential stream of revenue. She was saying that's the theory behind it, but the policy does the exact opposite. It further exploits the most vulnerable women, and it does not get any good return, very, very few good returns, if any at all. They're negative returns. And what it actually does is it empowers human traffickers, and it exploits women and exploits the most vulnerable women. So now they use AI to analyze these complicated laws, translate them into fifth grade English, so that now anyone can understand them. And now they've mobilized lived experience experts, survivors of human trafficking, those who are on the front lines helping the victims, who are primarily young ladies. And they've brought them into the legislative process. They've sponsored several laws here in California, and now they've turned the tide. So now when these legislators have an interest group that's given them money because they have a certain agenda, they have to face these survivors who have the lived experience, who are representing the community, who are sharing their perspective on this, and they've mobilized people. And now the whole process has become much more transparent. And I would say we're making far better laws as a result. And we've changed the trend, and we're passing laws to protect the vulnerable. So that is a test case of how AI and, we're not really using Web3, but you can envision Web3 taking this to the next level. Those are the things that I think are very hopeful.
I'm just like what you said, Ted, about it being more granular. That the technology exists. It's not. We're just not using it. Like I'm sure that we have enough capability and data to look at any given politician right now and understand what their track record of decision making on laws has been since they started. To the nth degree. I don't think it's in their, I think it's in the public's best interest, but I don't know that it's going to necessarily be in their best interest, because I think that I would imagine that there's a degree of anxiety that comes with that kind of information being released widely, because we don't know what the impact of our decisions are, played out, rippled out, tenfold, 100-fold. We don't know what that's like. However, we're not going to get any better at what we're doing if we don't acknowledge what's there and pretend like these low bar metrics that we're using for things like right now, like you think about this, things we hear like, how's the president doing? And there's maybe like 3 or 4 things. We're using AI and it's 3 or 4 things. Why not 3 or 4,000 things?
Mhm.
Seriously. Like, and I'm not trying to be funny, but like 3 or 4 things. Oh yeah, he's kind of popular. It's like, what does that even mean? It lacks such context when you think about the capabilities. How are you doing on specific things? Like very specific. I'm talking about like, if you ever seen that drive time commercial, it's like the slidey thingy. You're like, okay, well, how you doing with women? How you doing with men? How you doing with, certain ethnic groups? How you doing with this zip code? How you doing with people's pockets? People, who get SNAP benefits, people who are in, Social Security. How you doing with and all those numbers will be different. And it's possible. You had all the tech, you had the whole tech hub, at the White House when, you got elected, everybody's there, you got all the influence. Why isn't there an app for that? We have an app for everything as far as marketing goes, where your eyes are moving, what you like, what you're clicking on, what you're scrolling, all that. You got plenty for marketing. Not very much for, the granular and what the impact of what it is we're doing is. And I understand it could be uncomfortable, but it's possible. And it'll be interesting to see how far we're going to, the average person who has capability now too, is going to take these things for themselves and then on a bigger stage. Because I feel like once that starts to become more widely used or utilized, I should say, and it's put on Web3 or the blockchain, and there's badges for those things, I think once things are tied to individuals, the accountability is not far behind, because you don't want to be you want to be associated with good. You want to be associated with doing good things. And if your actions are not ferreting out, like or not, the result of what your actions are not net good, then you're probably going to want to do some things to change that. And we have that capability. And it's, I think if we start with, let's do it from a blameless, place. Let's just say, this is an exercise in doing better. This is what is. Deal with it. What exactly are you going to do from this point forward now that you know? But the not knowing, that to me is unacceptable. Not with what we have now technology-wise. And I think all those things, with gaming and gamifying and all these other things, start to come into play. It would be interesting if somebody just came out with a video game and just hypothetically put it out, and they started making player cards or whatever. I've always found, I didn't grow up playing, soccer, as, Americans call it, but football for the rest of the world. But I love the way, the meritocracy of football in that way, because you think about, as much as American football makes the most money, I love how you look at like the English Premier League or any, league, when they're soccer, football, whatever you want to call it. If you fall in the bottom 3, you get relegated. So it'd be like the equivalent of baseball. It's like you're a major league team. You suck this year. You're at the bottom 3. So now you're in the minor leagues next year. You lose your stadium rights.
That's
Gone.
hilarious.
I love that because now it takes all the lazy out. Gone.
Like that.
You know, like you can't get to just, oh, I'm making $10 million a year. You can't tell me nothing. I'm shooting Jays. It's great. Nope. Bottom three, gone. Minor leagues for you. Bye-bye. Same thing the other way. You're in the minor leagues, finish top three. Guess what? Getting your butt and you're getting up. You know, they open the books and there you are. You get all their stuff. I like that. And I think that's to me is where we need to be. You know, it just works better in my view. I don't think people like it because some of the, you know, kind of entitlement is taken away if you've just been sitting pretty and, you know, resting on your laurels. You know, that doesn't work really well. But if you're really talking about meritocracy, about, you know, like, again, this is what I'm doing. This is my, you know, I'm putting in work. I think that's it. You know, imagine, like Danny was saying, imagine a lieutenant governor. Man, you really messed up this semester. You lieutenant now. Try this other guy out. And it's not like these folks who are elected, they don't know this because they've been in corporate America. And it's way bloodier than that. That blood sport is a whole different level.
Yeah.
You either do or you go.
Well, it makes it easier to get rid of I don't want to say get rid of. If non-performance, there's someone right beneath you it's not a mentorship. Kind of like maybe two people to work the position, kind of, and get paid the same. How's that sound? I want two people in there getting the same one salary, and they could split up whatever the job description is, and then I don't know, figure out which two do better, or what's the accountability for someone not performing in a government job? They still got 3 years to sit there and do bad. You know, there's no you. Ted mentioned, you know, you have a recall. When's the last recall that we had? Not presidential recall, because that's always great hype and great media. Talking about in your local district, your mayor, your assemblyman, because those are the people who affect you.
That'd be interesting to see, like Google, how often local recalls are. I know we had a recall in California. California's, you know, has built in direct democracy, and we use that a lot. The recall failed, unless, of course, the recall was to recall Gavin Newsom, and it failed.
We're going to take a 9-minute break, come back, and when we do, I will share some of the rad things that I learned when I was with all of those incredible tech leaders in the faith industry. So we'll be back again in about 9 minutes, everybody.
I have a dollar bill in my hand. If you want a dollar, stand up. Maybe you want a dollar? You want a dollar? Hey, why not? We got a couple standers. Okay, there we go. How about, here's a $100 bill. Does anybody want a $100 bill? Is that really it? Some people are still sitting, you don't want a $100 bill? That's surprising. Isn't it amazing how much we value this? Is there a single mom in the room? Any chance there's a single mom? Is there a single dad? Yes, here you come take this. So, isn't it amazing how much we value things? And how these two things, $1 and $100, we value so much differently. Well, may you and your children be blessed. So, how about if I said, if you want me to bless you, stand up? Would you value that? Do you value a blessing the way you'd value $1 or $100? How do we value things? I think it's super important for us to think about. Now, the topic of my conversation is AI, accountability, and accessibility. Now, I've been thinking about this for a long time. I'm on my 7th company. It's called Attention Live. And we've done the beginnings of implementing what we believe is the future of accountability with machine learning and all things artificial intelligence and accessibility. Now, for us, we believe accessibility is a voice interface. That's kind of our thought. So if AI is accessible for people to talk to it and AI talks back to people, and that's the interface, that makes it accessible. Therefore, it's not just the computer scientists that have ability to engage with AI. And we see some of these positive elements happening with Siri and Alexa. The problem is that it's not a great experience, and so maybe it's more damage than good, especially when we project out how all applications should have a very seamless voice interface. You should basically just still talk to your device and just does what you'd like it to do in whatever language you have, in whatever, not just dialect, but whatever it's called when you have the the slur, the southern accent, that's it. So how about accountability? Should AI be accountable to itself? Should AI be accountable to trillion-dollar market cap tech corporations? Should AI be accountable to humans? I would propose that AI should be accountable to distributed ledger technology. That's my proposal. Now, this may start with coding smart contracts and Solidity on the Ethereum blockchain or some other alternative blockchain, and having those smart contracts be protocols that tell the AI what it can and cannot do. But we need to be thinking about how to structure our tech development so that AI is not accountable to itself, accountable to a trillion-dollar market cap corporation, accountable to one or multiple human beings, but can be accountable to different protocols we've set up through smart contracts that will make sure it does what it should do and does not do what it should not do. Now, many of you are going to say, well, accessibility matters most. That's the thing. Like, AI has to be accessible. And then others are going to say, I care about the accountability. We got to make sure that AI doesn't go out of control and launch rockets and hurt humans. I just think it can be both. I think it can be both. Super simple. What's the first step for you? I would say a first step is whatever application you're about to build, like the next one that's going to roll out in 2023, what more can you do to have a better voice interface for that application than you were going to do? That's a first step. You don't have to go back to the app you launched this year or 3 years ago and try to add this or add that to it. What can you do that's on the roadmap? Can you add a better voice interface? Can you add other languages? Can you make sure that different accents are being heard? Can you make sure that there's different accessibility? Can you make sure that there's call words? Can you add a Siri shortcut, even though you can't build out a custom conversational AI app for Siri? Can you at least add a shortcut so it still can pull up and then make sure your app works? What can you and your team do for accessibility in the future? The other thing is the accountability factor. You got to take a step somewhere in the right direction. Are you doing anything with the blockchain? Are you doing anything with the Ethereum blockchain or any other layer 1 blockchains? There's so many of them now. And all of them are just distributed servers around the world that can never be eliminated or removed. If you don't understand the system, it's just a new ledger. It's very simple. Like back in the day, you used to take ink and write on a piece of paper, and 2 people signed it, and then the big thing was when there was 2 copies. A monk thought of that. A monk said there should be 2 copies for a contract. So that was a new ledger, right? The very first ledger was like God's finger in the stone. So then we got to writing with a typewriter. And then we got to computers with servers in our house. And now cloud servers, the AWS, the GCS, the Azures. And now we're transitioning slowly but surely, first DeFi and then supply chain management and then other things, to distributed ledger technology. What can you do with your development moving forward to figure out how to leverage machine learning tied to some form of smart contracts that will hold that accountable? The people I'm most thoughtful of are not you in this room. Like at our company, we have like an immediate goal. Our immediate goal is to automate wealth creation for podcasters and their communities. That's a pretty ambitious goal. If we can automate the ability for podcasters to make money and for their communities to financially benefit, yay. And like our big public mission might be to build the most important communication tool in the world for all creators and those that follow and listen and watch what they do. But my private vision is about the 3 billion people in the world that don't yet have the internet. You know those 3 billion people? They make less than $2 a day? Those ones. We actually talk about those people more often than most of our peers because we are very thoughtful of this demographic and the need to get the sacred scriptures to them in a way that they can access it. But soon, they will have some form of connection. Now, they probably won't have a one wheel. They may not have like cool chrome glasses. And maybe they don't have like a nice watch. They probably don't have shoes. Are you thinking about these people? Are you mindful of these people? It's what I'm thoughtful of. How do we create applications with AI and machine learning that will help these 3 billion humans once they're given a cheap ring that has a voice interface that's connected to a Starlink satellite of some sort? Are we building our applications so they can talk to it, so they can hear it? Are we building our applications so that our applications are automated through distributed ledger technology and accountable through distributed ledger technology? I think that's super, super important. It's what I'm really focused on. My message to you today is to take one step forward that you weren't going to take. Take the risk and go talk to the board. Take the risk. Put yourself out there, no matter what it costs, because there's 3 billion humans in the world that are about to get the internet, and they need what we have to offer, and we need to have a conversational AI interface for them, and we need to make sure that what we're providing them is thoughtful for the long run. That's what I came to share with you.
All right. Well, welcome back from our break. Let me bring all the party people up to the stage. So that's what I shared 2.5 years ago at the Missional AI Summit. A lot of the friends that we were able to spend time with in Colorado were there at the Missional AI Summit. And, you know, these people, they basically have been given the task of using technology for faith purposes. Now, some of them are really focused on language creation. So they use AI tools to do language creation. And their reason for being involved with language creation is there's a bunch of languages that are out there that don't have their language written down yet. So the Bible can't be translated into their language. And so the Bible is just a verbal thing. And so these massive technology companies are serving the Bible distribution, global machine, that number one selling book of all time. And they built all this technology infrastructure to get the Bible out by any means necessary, physical and, of course, digital. So it was, that's one group is like all around language creation, Bible distribution. Another group is around all the things about just serving communities. There's people that gather physically, people that gather digitally. And a lot of these tech companies have done a lot. And now a big thing that was emerging that I heard talked about is just serving the leaders of these communities. And so one thing that they announced, which was a big announcement between YouVersion that has 991 million downloads, and Glue, which has raised 9 figures and has been a massive ever-growing company for the last 15 years in this space. They just announced their proprietary AI, where it's the three things they're going after is it's safe, secure, it's aligned with the belief system of their faith that they're leveraging technology for. So safe and secure and aligned and then honest. And so they just made that big announcement. So I'm looking forward to seeing like how does that impact pastors that are currently using Grok or Gemini or ChatGPT. Now they can start using the U version Glue, and it supposedly is supposed to be safe and aligned. And so I think that could be a nice thing. There was a bunch of other big tech announcements that happened over the 3 days, but I thought we could just kind of start there. And that's why I played the video for the Missional AI Summit a couple of years back, because that was the last time I had connected with a lot of the same folks.
I think a lot about claims. Well, I'm thinking about it even more lately. And it could span the gamut. It could be, anywhere from marketing to just what we present to people who we're doing business with or even having a conversation with. And I think about the peace of mind. Like when you say, this is safe and it's honest and it's based on these beliefs, I feel like, and I'm sure there's more to it than that. I feel like it's important to state things in a way that's commensurate with the capabilities that AI have. Saying AI, infused, or I'm using AI or proprietary AI, to me, it seems it's lacking to me. Maybe that's not the common opinion, but that's what I think about it. I feel like it's important to add way more rich, robust context to that, because anyone can say anything, and does, it seems. And I think the fact that we have the capability and the opportunity to do it, I don't know that we're leveraging that enough. Now, some people may say, well, I don't have time for that. Well, then don't. It depends on how interested you are in it. But for me personally, it's become, I'm just starting to lean more into this feeling of being irresponsible, knowing, especially us in this room, we understand what, to a fair extent, the capability that AI has. We've used it in multiple different ways, sometimes right here. We talk about it all the time. So we're under no illusions of, what it can, what its capabilities are. And, the question I have, even to the group, to myself is just a one-dimensional metric being provided enough? Is it even worthy of any real consideration, regardless who is it coming from? That's really because I feel like the more we, not necessarily challenge for the sake of being a contrarian or combative, but responsible. We know what it's capable of. It's like, think about a parent. You have a child. Your child is capable of clearly getting all A's, but they're coming home with C's. And you're seeing it. You're like, well, this is beneath you. At what point is it no longer them, but you for not being responsible? And that is where, my mind's been going with a lot of this stuff. I like the idea of, proprietary AIs that are, specifically focused, that are narrowly focused. I love that idea. I'd love even more if there was far more context, that was commensurate with what that means, and not just the assumption or entitlement, dare I say, that by saying that, that's supposed to mean something or whatever it means. That's where I'm at with it. But I'm happy to see that they're pursuing it in that regard. It's just, the question is, what happens when it gets challenged, and why isn't it, we're even challenging it ourselves to kind of, add to the robustness of it, the value of it, because that to me is something that's powerful and helpful.
Before the break, I was thinking about how we now have the jackhammer. We've used that example a lot. But we now have this tool that can do so much more. We're not back in 1900 when, yeah, sure, we got a printing press. It's pretty good, but it's kind of hard to get information to everybody. And dude, it would be so difficult to be able to vote on all these little things, or to be able to actually see like to show people what these people are doing. Like, that's so difficult. We can't do that. It's like, now I have a phone. Boom. I don't even have to say anything more. That's it. I have a phone. And it's fully capable of having these technologies be built. And so I think we need to find a way to be able to make these challenges be something that's motivating to happen, that's actually going to be beneficial for the whole society as well as the leaders in a way. I mean, is there a way that we can make it so that transparency is in the leader's benefit?
Not blaming, maybe. Not like start with a place of, no blame, just doing better. But I think that differentiation has become it becomes important, because it's really tough to me sometimes, where you could go out and present yourself and do all the right things, is what we would consider right. However, the mere fact that everybody's saying they're doing the right things, it's looked at with skepticism, even though that's not where the intent, or that's not the place it's coming from. And I don't know what the answer is to that, but I do know I feel that, because what ends up happening is you approach something from a good place, and it's received with such skepticism that sometimes by the time the person figures out that, wow, this is the real deal, they've already put you off. Like, you're just like, no, that's too much. And that to me that's a tough one. But that's the world we live in, and I feel like it's going to take true effort and commitment, passion about these things, to really keep going after it, keep getting after it, keep get the badges up, get something that's a little bit more universally accepted. So yeah, everybody, there's 10 generals here, but one of them got this badge, one of them got another general. It's like 5-star, 6-star, whatever the case may be, and they all mean something. And that thing that it means can be explained. It can be tracked back to the actual work that's being done. There's a stamp on it. Yeah, there's a certification. Like triple OG certified. Like it's that. I feel like standards that once used to be more universally accepted, like that you could hold on to. You could be like, oh man, this guy's solid. This gal's solid. I shook their hand. It's a big deal. Now it's like, it's a challenge.
I think it's interesting that we are able to have engaging and thoughtful conversations, and that we're okay with having silence. I think the world can easily go too fast, where it's like, we need answers now, and we need to know this now. But it's like, I was just having a thought of how time is going straight. Like, if I magically could make it, like, yeah, the AI takes 2 minutes to give me the response. But what if I could magically just make it so that it gave me the response now instead of 2 minutes? Like, we are so easily rushed as a human being. And I think that is an inherently human thing. We want more, whether that's more land or more money or more resources, whether that's as a nation or as an individual. And I think being a human can be so complex. And when you add these different tools that humanity has never had before, we've never had the ability to know someone's actions in such a deep way, where we know almost everything they're doing. Like, that's such a weird thing. The whole concept of a celebrity still sometimes feels so wild to me that it even exists. And I think going into this world where a lot of the things, even now, people like Landrew think, I don't want any of my data to be online. But a lot of you is
I
simply
put all of
going
his
to
data
be,
online.
a lot of us, we're
Do it
simply
for 'em.
going to be seen. Like, if you're driving, you're probably going to be seen by a camera or two, not someone else's
You just
car.
when you pass a camera, drive.
Right. But I think this idea of we're going into such a different world, what can we do to make sure that we're prepared, is just an interesting and important thing to, in general, be ready for. But I like what you were saying, Nigel.
Updated numbers on OpenAI are quite staggering. 800 million daily or weekly active users on ChatGPT right now. $20 billion in annual revenue.
That's so
So
crazy.
the average
20 billion.
out of the 800 million people, the average spends $25 a year. So it's basically like 10% of people have a paid account is the basic math. And it's fully closed. Start off as a nonprofit. Now you could say it's become maximum profit focused, but they still lose money. They still lose money right now. So everyone's become dependent. Not everyone, but a lot of the 800 million people have a feeling of dependency upon this technology that is even making $20 billion in revenue, still losing money, from what I understand. So that is one direction. Then the other direction is you have, folks that are trying to say, oh, it should be open source. Let's all work together. Let's all throw out, let's all kind of just be a communal approach to this. And then you got like people like Brian Romley, who are basically just making things happen on his own. His new thing right now is he's got like a really huge LLM that he can run off of a iPhone 13 or, some phone that's a few years old. And he off the cloud, disconnected from the internet. He's got like a full LLM running. He's all pumped about it. So you got these individual guys and gals that are doing huge things, and some are trying to pull their resources together, and others are running full steam ahead. Then I mentioned YouVersion with 991 million downloads and coming together with Glue, and I'm very intrigued to see if people will use their tool. Their tool will likely be free without any a sense of it. It's just kind of a funded project for my assumption. I'd be surprised if they charged people to use their closed source thing, but I guess time will tell. It's might be expensive to run it, but it did have the essence of like this is this amazing tool we built for all of the faith leaders out there that need something that's aligned and safe and honest. So that's kind of how it was presented. Which, if that's what they delivered, it'd be quite nice for those folks. Go ahead.
Oh, can I interject here? I love the premises, and I see those as deeply needed. Safe, aligned, and what was the third one?
Honest.
Yeah, I suppose honest would include transparent. Like if we could, the more and more transparency we can bring to AI, and this is a challenge one because in many ways the AI and these neural networks are a black box, and like we don't really know why they're making decisions. But I think even more so, we've got to push for its transparency. But to me, I see the biggest need and the opportunity. I would say this is the biggest opportunity for the faith community. And one of the biggest needs in our society right now, the problem is polarization. And it's from perspective, and so you can examine the same data and you have a different perspective. You come to opposite conclusions. And now we have the tools to, in very sophisticated ways, present different data to different people. But on the flip side, and AI is going to empower that even more. So AI can empower further polarization, because AI can control the data, the truth, the raw data from which we draw our conclusions from, can control that in unthinkable ways. But also the flip side of that, and where I see the big opportunity for doing good, is for greater transparency. And I suppose this falls into the trustworthy, aligned, and honest category. Is, I think AI could be, if we want it to be, a tool to bring us together, because it can help us examine our assumptions. It can help us dive deeper. It can help us, and then you tie it in with things like VR and things like that, where we can empathize greater. I mean, I see that is like if we can create greater unity and greater collaboration, greater empathy, that's like where we're going to then unlock innovation that's truly going to create human flourishing for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to see the faith community step up to that in a really forward-looking way and create the tools that is not just for faith leaders, but is what they see society needs, and become a servant for society. Because otherwise, I mean, what I saw happen in like the previous iterations of technology with Web 1 and Web 2, Christians were busy trying to build like a Facebook for their community, and very passionate about that. And they were trying to create tools for us, for our community. And meanwhile, this isn't completely true, because there's always counterexamples. And I would say Life Church is one of them. Life Church and YouVersion are one of the counterexamples of where they were really creating tools, not just for their community, but for humanity as a whole. But I see basically we were so busy trying to create the tools for our own community, and we were lagging behind in the technology, that we ended up just being irrelevant, and all these Facebook for church networks, no one uses them. They died. So I'd love your feedback on that, Ian, what your sense is there. Long pause for dramatic effect. Pretty effective.
Man's thinking.
It just feels complicated. It's not an easy response. So it was weird, because I was a part of all that. Like, I was there at NRB when GodTube was announced, back when MySpace came to do a keynote, and the whole faith, tech, AV marketing world's like, MySpace is here. Check it, we got GodTube now. Like, I was there, just like I was reminiscing with the YouVersion guys. Like, I've been hanging out with them for 16 years, So I've seen so many of these things, and intent is one thing. The response to the market is another thing. One thing that was clear to me, this is the Glue AI Hackathon. Well, there's a lot of things that were made clear to me, but one thing that really stood out is these folks that were there for the most part are not thinking about Web3. It's not at the forefront of their mind. They're thinking AI. They're thinking, about their goals. So we got to get the scriptures in more people's hands. So we got to, create more languages. We got to make sure that faith leaders have all the tools necessary to do what they do better. let's build this tool set for them. We got to reach as many people that don't believe what we believe with the message of what we believe in a way that they can understand it and then join our tribe. And so everything is like just in that. So they have all these like end results they're going for. Oftentimes there is excess capital floating around that people want to like, hey, let's take this capital and do something really big, really a huge impact. And they tie it to eternal things. And this is going to change eternity. I'm going to, help save souls. And there's a lot of emotion behind it. And so, okay, well, let's funnel, massive 8-figure or 9-figure into this effort. And it used to be that was done for buildings, and buildings was like the big technology. It's like, oh, we're going to, invest 1,000 years wages into this building right now. Like that's what we're going to do. Well, now there's different things that these, donors and philanthropists, charitable, benevolent people that want to give their money away for one or many of these end results will give their money and say, okay, go make something big happen. But it did feel like folks are more united than I had seen in the past. That was encouraging to me. It did feel like a lot of, big time heavy hitters had been invited to have leadership roles. So the head of technology for Glue AI, he was something like the CTO at NASA. So that's pretty amazing. Obviously Pat Gelsinger, the prior CEO at Intel, and before that, the CEO at VMware, he just joined their team at Glue AI for the his role as like head of AI, I believe. So, it was definitely exciting to see kind of brilliant minds come together at this company that's been at it 15 years. Obviously easy to celebrate all the amazing things that happened with YouVersion and Life Church. Biblica was there. Biblica had a great moment, a couple great moments there. And all these different groups brought a bunch of people to hack. And there was 97 groups that did the hackathon. Mostly young people won the hackathon prizes. These young college kids were primarily the winners, which was heartwarming, as you might imagine. And, one prize is 100,000. There's a 30,000, 20,000, a bunch of 10s, a bunch of 5s. So like, a lot of people that came to participate, building technology, leveraging any AI product. And there's a few that did some stuff with Web3 crypto stuff, which was kind of fun. I got to hang out and talk to them and, buddy up, and we're the Web3 people that are there and all that. And it was cool. It was cool. And I had some really great things open, some great conversations that, are private, but that were really wonderful.
So Malachi wasn't there, right? It was just you and Reza.
Reza and I.
Yeah.
Reza did all the talking. I did all the listening.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true.
I'm having this thought of how there's these not conflicting, but there's these two camps of how futuristic thinkers are trying to create systems that work. You have kind of like the faith community of like, do better as an individual, be more benevolent, kind, give your money away, live by the 90-10, which is an awesome thing, obviously. It's lovely to see people, in a way, doing better for themselves by doing better for other people. But then you have to know that that's not always the reality for all of humanity. And whether that's permanent or not, it's just the way it is now. And so then there's these ways of, well, how do we incentivize people to do these good? And then systems kind of just get built on their own. And so I think these two different ideas of people being awesome and creating things by being willing to give what is already theirs, that always, of course, not always, but that creates amazing impact. There's plenty of like charities as a blanket thing that I could say, amazing what they've done in many ways. And then you have these other things of trying to create a system that works. And a lot of these things are both good, but how do we see them being affected in both each unique way? I think that's going to be something that matters, because with AI, we now have this ability to be able to make systems in quite a seamless way. And so it lets us create things as long as we have an idea. And I think that as a
I'm lost.
basis is an interesting idea to kind of dive into.
What did you see, Ian, what stood out to you as one of the better or more prominent winners or projects in general? It didn't even have to win, but what have you saw there? Like, because I'm very interested in understanding the impact of some of these things, and not just from a judging winner, but more from a visionary perspective, because I don't think everybody sees the value in certain things. There's potential in many things, for different ways. It might not be the monetizable way that some people look at it, but even to be more specific, to give an example, think about all the versions of the Bible, or all the different Bible apps, if you would. What are the ones that have created the most impact? Like, you speak to people who use the Bible. They go to Bible study, they do all these things. When they find their app, the one that they like, is like, oh, look at all these things I can do. Look at how I can. So I don't know that, with all the versions, that's great, that you have these different versions, you pick the one, I guess, that you like. But I think being able to use it, the actionable intelligence, if you would, you would be able to pull from there, the insights that would be able to help you to achieve. I'm wondering how much of that, how that's prioritized actually, versus let's just get it in the hands of more people. Because making a new version is not necessarily going to help it to get in the hands of more people.
Mm-hmm.
Not by itself. Like,
yeah, only if it's a new language. But even then, if there's no written language, that means that people still have to learn how to read and write. So it's like it's a very complicated situation.
Right.
I'll say some things that were pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Biblica, and we chatted for a bit. They did put some of their open source, if not all of their open source content, on a R-Wave blockchain. Well, I'd never heard of it. I guess it was an alternative to IPFS that allowed them to do an upfront fee that guaranteed it would stay on the distributed ledger indefinitely. So as long as that DLT is interoperable in the future, then great, it's there. So that was cool to kind of talk with them about a bit. There's a AO Labs that has taken every open source scripture and basically made it an open API where you can just tie to the API and basically get access to that. So that was very cool. Biblica and YouVersion launched a new product for licensing. It basically automates the ability for organizations, especially if it's non-commercial approach, for organizations to get access to all of that content free, free and legally. So that was a very cool development. So there was like definitely some things that I was very encouraged by, things that were big upgrades this week compared to what was talked about 2.5 years ago at the Mission AI Summit. Now, another one is like the projects I saw, new projects. Most of them were kind of cute, that got attention. They were college, young people. So they were cute. Like, oh, let's turn the car ride, the road trip into an adventure game. So everyone logs in and we all basically play the same adventure game in the car instead of being on our phones doing our own thing. Like, cute, fun, rad, nice design, a cool idea. There was the one that won was all about helping people understand what they're reading, because it's not uncommon for someone to desire faith, show up to a faith community, get told, here's a Bible, read the Bible, or here's a Bible app, download this Bible app, read the scriptures or listen to it. And then people do, and they think, I don't have any idea what this is about. Like, I don't understand this at all. Probably even more challenging if they, use one of those versions of the Bible that is kind of like a different language. If you don't read the Bible and you're interested in taking a peek, I'd suggest things like, I think Gail Irwin wrote The Message. Brian Simmons wrote the Passion Translation. These are easy to understand. New Living Translation is also not too difficult to comprehend.
There's also some versions that are deliberately made to be easy. There's one called Survival.
Easy. So one was Veritas, and so the group that won $100,000, they basically built an app to help people, understand what they're reading. There was some really cool kind of high tech things that were built out, just things that would save our company attention lifetime, and working with some of these folks. So that was obviously encouraging. People were very optimistic. I was really happy with the attitude of everyone. People were happy and optimistic and positive, and had a real cheery demeanor about them. And they were there, and they were wanting to collaborate with everybody, and it was a cool deal.
I think having a good attitude actually is the number one indicator for how well things go for a group or for people.
And then they worked hard. So good attitude's one thing. They worked hard. People were working all night. They had deadlines the entire weekend. You had to hit this metric at this time and this metric at this time to get to the next round. And they were up. People were sleepless, and they were going for it. And, it's not maybe great for your body or something, but it's definitely fun for people to do. And they talked about this is like going to lock in at youth group when we were kids, or it's like science camp, or and there's something nice about that for professionals to have, for them to be able to participate in that. So the food was incredible, which doesn't matter, but it does, because of what it says to everyone that's there. The people putting this on, they value us. They're glad we're here. They're going all out, no stops. And then
it was in Boulder, not Colorado Springs.
It was on the Colorado University campus.
Colorado University campus of Boulder.
Yeah, there's a hotel called Limelight that's obviously a university campus hotel. And I'll tell you another thing, man, Boulder was incredibly impressive. I had not driven through all that different area of Boulder where the campus is at, where Kevin lives, and it was I've been around there, but I never drove through that area. It was very, very, very impressive. It's a very nice feeling, safe feeling, extremely clean. It was clean, kind of it reminded me of Salt Lake City clean. It was just really clean and upkept and just dialed. It was really quite impressive there. And there's a great disc golf course. So obviously that completely enhances my love.
And that's not important, but it is, because that shows that they truly value the people who came.
Hey now.
That might be the most important.
I'm feeling love.
Just quote you? I think
man, I'm thinking now, it would have.
It's either me or the graduate champion. That's basically Ted is,
Ted, I think you
memorizing our bumper stickers.
It would have been
to the future, because you look at something like this happening, it's more on a fun or developer level, or for the people.
Well, we get to go back. We get to go to
this
Oklahoma
expand to become
mid-November, and so
huge?
it'll be nice to chit chat with the teams for the next.
So it sounds
month.
like Integrity wasn't there because you haven't mentioned them.
I didn't see anybody from Integrity. Nope. Didn't see anybody from Pray.com. It was really an event. It was Glue, YouVersion, Biblica, and the Missional AI Summit. It was kind of their communities coming together, and then a lot of Christian universities. A lot of Christian universities participated in the hackathon. That's why a bunch of young people won the prizes, because young people came out to compete. It was cool. I enjoyed it. Well, we're at 1:30.
Can you summarize real quick at the end for what were the major implications, and why can this actually matter for anybody just watching who's going to experience living in whatever future world we have? What could this possibly plant the seeds of?
I'm not sure how to answer that, son. It sounds like an exciting challenge of a question. Summarize a bunch of stuff that you just said.
Not summarize, but make a tie to how can this actually affect the general future? Or is this more of a community building event? Which is obviously fine.
The event I just went to?
Yeah.
The event I went to was an event for two types of people. The most, significant folks in the technology world tied to faith, building tech for faith, and young people from Christian universities that wanted to participate in a hackathon building AI tools. And there was games, hardcore development, and then in-house projects that were done by Biblica, Uversion, and Glue. And then there was the vibe coding projects where people just basically use Lovable. So those are kind of the two main groups. As far as the future, how is the future impacted? I think that the future will be positively impacted when huge institutions with massive numbers of users and massive access to capital and huge ability to get things done with an incomparable network. The end consumer, 2.4 billion people, are tied to this faith medium. So, I think that it's good for humanity, for these folks to be aligned and to work together, not to work in silos. So I'm very encouraged by that.
But the mission AI world, that world does not.
By the way, the Mission AI Summit, Ted, will be here in Santa Clara in April. So, you and I need to get connected with Mark's team and really make sure that we are set to be involved with that. I want to be involved with that in April. It's going to be right here in our own town.
Yeah, absolutely.
Naj, you lean in to say something before we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing has got me, to kind of touch on Malachi's question. I think that hackathons would be an interesting way to approach some of the issues we have in society. Like, you think if we have all this AI, we talk about AI, like, clearly if our politicians haven't figured out certain problems, maybe it is time to ask AI. Maybe it is time to get some, proters and programmers and coders and vibe, people to sit down and be like, okay, well, here's a problem, and you can still bring Biblica and all the other folks in, give me a God-focused solution. Give me a, humanitarian solution that, is enriched with all the goodness, the benevolence, and all these other things, and make that a project.
Right.
And have some of these big, billion-dollar, trillion-dollar companies, sponsor that and see if they can't come up with something that's actually usable, not just cool, like work towards, and at least give people, I think that at a minimum, you can at least take back some of those ideas, take them to the senators and Congress people and say, okay, well, here's what they came up with. What can you do with that? You got a budget, let's see what you come up with. Because, the people have spoken in this regard, and we used AI and we're using all the other stuff. So I think that, to that whole gaming and how do we do it, that might be a way. Yeah, I'm surprised it hasn't even. Maybe it has in schools or universities, but why can't we hack our way to to solving some of these issues?
Right.
I think a hackathon is mainly useful because it gives power in a way, and the ability to change something to just the ordinary people.
Well, we can do some pretty fun hackathons, and one nice thing about this network is when a network gets this large, that the size of Uversion, the size of Biblica, the size of Glue, and others, when a network gets this large and they come together and they collaborate, it allows other organizations like ours to come participate as part of their ecosystem. And that, just like what we're doing with Base, the Coinbase ecosystem, and on and on. Gentlemen, same gratitude time, same gratitude channel tomorrow, 3 p.m.
With
Eastern
the same
for all you
gratitude
East
champion.
Coasters out there, noon Pacific for all of the left coasters. Daylight savings time is coming pretty soon, by the way, November 2nd.
Left coasters.
Prefer that we not have daylight savings time, but it's coming whether we like it or not. It means it's going to start getting real dark in the next. It's going to be sunsetting right now. Not quite at 1:30, but it's going to happen.
Like that 1:30.
What a bummer that would be. There are places in the world, man, where they just can't get rid of the sun and they can't get none. But not here. Not here. We got a 50-50 program going on here in Tampa and the Bay Area. Goodbye, everybody. We're out of here. See you tomorrow.